What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NFT Pirates. I've got the main man himself, Chris Severs, in the house with me today. Former, successful business entrepreneur guy. Now he's a marketing VP at a really high-end agency. He's a big-time physical collector, and obviously has turned to the digital. And I just see him writing all these amazing articles all over Twitter. And I was like, dude, we got to chat. So what's up, man?
Hey, Chad, nice to meet you. I just want to thank you for having me on. First video of YouTube, I think, was your show when I was getting into this whole thing. And so come full circle. You're the first video I've actually been on. So
It's so
crazy,
crazy.
crazy.
Man, it's funny because I see my analytics and it's like, oh, some people are watching from Vancouver, from BC, from, LA. And I'm like, is this real people or is this just somebody that skims? So it's nice to know that these videos do have an impact, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone down a while now. So your setup is great. You used to be on the couch. I was watching you. So
Yeah. I still got to make a few more improvements, but I've always had that relaxed, chill vibe. And I think that's what people appreciate because it's just like authentic content, raw,
yeah,
authentic content, right?
yeah. So it's not doesn't seem too scripted, right? So it's just out there. That's what I love about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So so when did you get into Veve, Chris? Were you like one of the early guys, like March of 2021, or were you a little bit after that or before?
I think I've got one of those. I've heard this story before, right? I was watching. This is probably January, February, 2021. I think I was watching BitBoy Crypto.
Oh
This is
wow.
right when I was trying to figure out what all this crypto stuff. I was really late to the game, right? I'm not an early Bitcoiner and all that stuff, but he started talking about these NFT things, and I'm like, what is that? Okay, here we go, something new. But he mentioned two or three things like Decentraland, and he says, there's one I'm paying particular attention to. It's called a Comey, right? They've got
Mhm.
this Batman thing going on. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I'm like, Batman? That's pretty interesting. So I went and I looked it up and I downloaded the app and I couldn't figure it out. And I said, oh, you know what? I'm probably going to wait on this. But something there was like, oh, I see this collector thing that they're doing. And so I bought a bunch of OMI tokens when it was, I couldn't count how many zeros were in front of it, right? So it's like, well, this seems easy. And
Right.
then I watched and I watched and I watched and I did nothing with it, right? I should have been buying tots like crazy and I didn't. But when did they drop the Marvel one and the Fantastic Four one? I think it was in
I think it was August or
August.
September, yeah, of 2021.
That was the kick in the pants. I was like, hey,
Wow.
what are you missing here? What? Because now it was talking my language about major comic books and stuff. And I said, how are they doing this? And so that's when I got back into the app and I said, well, I'm going to test it, put some money in, and I bought a James Bond poster because I love James Bond. I'd grown up with him, right? And so that was my first buy, and that was I think I signed up in March, and I don't think I made that purchase until like September. So it took me that long. I've been accumulating OMI at the time, but
Yeah.
I just never put two and two together. And then when I finally figured it out, it's like, oh, I see what this is. And then it was all in, right? It's like I can't miss this now. So I just my background in digital and watching all these things come and go, I just said, here's another opportunity that I'm already late.
Well, it looks like you got in right at that perfect moment because right after that, like
Yeah.
September to October, things just started to grow exponentially, so
Oh,
you got in
yeah.
just in time, right? And
Yeah.
now you've amassed a pretty serious collection, and I know that you're, one of these mint guys as well, like, you
Yeah.
chase specific mint numbers. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I
Yeah.
find that so crazy.
Yeah, I know. I get. I mean, I put out a couple articles on those Go Collect blogs about mint
Yeah.
chasing and why do I like it, and I I just find that I guess when I first started looking, like, why are they doing mint numbers? If
Mhm.
everything's on the blockchain and it's digital, every representation is pretty much exactly the same as the other one. So to me, that number became important. It's like, the stamps on a dollar bill, right? Each dollar bill has a sequential number proving that bill's printing authenticity. And so I thought, well, that might be something. To me, it looks like a signature. Right. And
Mhm.
in the physical comic book world, I mean, if you ever had a book with Stan Lee, if you signed it in the right place and all that kind of stuff, that's valuable. And so when you see it on the screen and it shows you the mint number at the bottom, to me, that's the representation of the signature. Like Veve puts out with Marvel when the start year was, let's say, in a comic run, but they don't put the year of that particular drop out, but that mint number kind of can represent that. And so if you've got a year plus its publication or its cover date month, to me, that's historical value. And then there's all the other things that open up from that, right? Some people, like I have, a lot of George Lucas Star Wars. I've got his May 14th, 44 birthday mints. I mean,
So crazy.
I know at some point, if the Star Wars masses come in, they really like George Lucas. So they're gonna pick up on that. They're gonna pick up on the 1977, the 1980, the 1983. They're gonna start looking for those specific mints based on the asset. And to me, that's gonna be how we weed out a little bit of differential between all these different mints that are out there. And so,
Right. I think that you say that so like eloquently. I think that's where people forget that it's like those special mint numbers can really see those potential parabolic price points because there's only 1 to 3 of them of like the most significant mints across the set. But then one thing that you said last time, like we were talking offline, which is really interesting, is people also forget these ones that are like maybe like have an extra 0 in front or an extra 1. Like it might be like 19 or like 977 as an example instead of 1977, and somebody just would still want that. It might go for a little bit of a premium, right? Is that would you see that?
I'm friends with another Veve guy on Twitter, Casual Veve, and we've had this chat, and he's like, "Oh man, I tell you, like the ones and the zeros, you barely see them. Like what you see, if you see a 19939 mint, your brain immediately knows what that is. Now it's not 1939, it's not 19391 or 19390. It's got that extra 9 in there. Maybe that pulls a couple of CGC points down on it or something like that.
Right.
But your brain sees it. You know what that number represents. And so to me, it's like anything that's close. So yeah, I take like I bought the AF15, the common. I got mint 6208, right? 62
Crazy.
August. So, and I was floored at the time because the mentality is, oh, I just got a 6200 mint. It's not low. To me, that was gold. Right. So I love that type of stuff. And so, but it's also different, right? I may be a little bit more unique in the fact that I do like to chase mint numbers. Not everybody does. A lot of people like low mints. A lot of people, like right now, it's really big to chase those last 50, 100 mints. They run, you're trying to get the last 99 hundreds. That's why I say this app has so much for so many different people. There's so many things that happen because of this. The palindrome thing. I know we talked about that a little bit. That's a really big thing in terms of dollar bill collecting, stamp collecting, anything else that has a sequential number sequence on it. It reads the same way left and right. You see the same number. That's a big deal.
Right.
So to me, as a marketing guy, I see all those as sort of targeting segments. You could do an ad campaign reaching out to palindrome enthusiasts, mathematical, numerical enthusiasts.
Ooh.
That's its own game, right? They don't care it's a NFT or a comic book. They just like things with numbers on them.
Wow.
So there's a lot of hidden gems, talking about gems, right? A lot of hidden gems that we haven't even tapped into yet, that sky's the limit on this stuff, right? So that's why I get pretty excited about all that. So
Man, that is so interesting. And like the coolest part about this is that you reiterated there was that not everybody has to love the mint numbers, but if a small proportion of the total, users are into that stuff, it's going to still occupy a big portion of what people are collecting. And when you only have maybe 20 to 30 significant mints within, a set that people are searching for, then you're really one of 30. You only have to have 30 other people in there that are interested to make it competitive at that point.
Yeah. One buyer.
Right.
I mean, it takes one other person to have that same passion, that I can't remember the fellow's name, but a couple of months ago, he paid the 10 grand for that 1939 MC1.
Whoa.
I mean, sounds like a lot of money, but man, I think that's one of the best plays we've seen in the app so far.
Right.
Like that's very representative of that 1-to-1, right? I want that mint. That common cover, 1939. Now, this is me. Don't follow me. I'm lost too, right? But that 1939 common with the classic cover will outperform the secret rare to me by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, you're saying with that
Representative
associated mint.
history. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
right. And so that part to me, I know a few of the people I talk with about that, we're kind of like, wow, boy, if you could get the mint number of the date on the common, that's as valuable as the secret rare, because there are so few of those key mint numbers.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
scarce. We talk about scarcity, right? Well, palindromes are more scarce than random numbers.
Mm.
Binaries, Veve Viking. I mean, we talked about this in the early days, right? There's not that many binaries, like a 11011, ones and
Mm.
zeros. Gold, very few 1, 2, 3, 4s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 130,000. So when you start looking at, what am I chasing? That to me is another strategy. You can just be a mint chaser. You can be a high mint chaser, a low mint chaser, a palindrome chaser. That, again, options, right? Comics,
Dude,
NFTs. There's all kinds of stuff. So
unbelievable. And you proved your point in that what you just said, because that person did pay 10K, which is 2 to 3,000 over the floor price of the secret rare for
yeah,
the 1939 common. So right away, you're already seeing that happen in real time.
right,
And what's fascinating about that too is like Marvel 1 has everything in my opinion, because it's the first comic, right, in like the real world, like where Marvel kind of came from, and then it's also their first representative comic on the blockchain. So it's like
right,
first and first.
yeah,
And then to have the 1939, oh, it's
yeah.
just crazy. Like there's so many things just stacking on top
Yeah,
of each other.
pretty jealous. Like in the early days, and I did this back in the gold rush of sort of the January, February last year, but it was probably 3x over floor, but the 8390 MC1 showed up. And so I grabbed that. And then I grabbed the palindrome, like I think it's 19391 or whatever. But everything to me, if I can find those 1939 references, right? So I
Wow.
kind of tapped out a little bit acquiring a lot of them. It's like, oh yeah. But the same thing. So when a book drops, right, like Giant Size X-Men, I mean, that's a really big book in the real world. It's sought after, it's popular.
Yeah.
Uh, Boy, do I love the X-Men. I mean, geez, it checks a lot of boxes. And then I was able to find the May 75 mint number common. So I, grabbing those up for 20, $25 on a book
Yeah.
worth how much in the real world? Like I just, in my mind, at some point down the road, the physical collectors that are coveting these things and getting them slabbed and paying the money to do that, and then showing it off because it's in my room. I don't know. That to me is going to be like, well, why wouldn't I want to have that digital pair? Why
Right.
wouldn't I do that? I probably got a subscription to Marvel Unlimited. I'm probably watching all the MCU. I'm probably a big fan. I've probably got these books. Why wouldn't I do this? Marvel says this is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I always revert back. Veve is our platform, right? To me, Veve is Apple. Apple made the phone. They don't make the apps, right? They bring the
Mm.
apps from other partners. Now we've got Marvel, Disney, Universal, like all of these incredible projects or platforms or IP are coming through the Veve app. How did that happen? It just blows my mind. It blows my mind. I've been in marketing for 25 years, and I tell you, it's hard to get partners on board. It's hard to get vendors. It's hard to close a company like Disney.
Right.
And David Yu and the guys in Akomi came out of nowhere and did that. So
Yeah.
to me, that was the most compelling thing that drove me into the app to say, how did they do that? There's
Yeah.
something here. There's got to be something here.
Right.
Disney wouldn't have just done this on a whim. Marvel, Star Wars, maybe they did it because they wanted to test and see how popular it was. But I don't know. I mean, what's Vv up to now? $1 million a week in revenue or something like that?
Yeah. Uh,
Right.
it's still $1 million a week in revenue. Yeah.
Do you know how many clients I work with on a daily basis that would love to have $1 million a year coming in?
Yeah.
Right? It's just like if we get to $1 million a month, like that's a big win,
Right.
right? And these are companies that advertise and do marketing across the U.S. and Canada and the whole thing. So I look at it from a sort of that lens that this business is very successful and in a very short amount of time.
Mm.
And of course they've had challenges. Of course they've had growth issues. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But that doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'm here for see where they're going to be in 5-10 years, not 5-10 weeks, right? So my mindset's a lot different too, right? So
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of whales that I talk to, and you know, people like yourself, they say the similar thing. Like they basically say that like right now is this crazy opportunity. They can't believe what's happened in such a short amount of time, and they've been through, you know, like I think somebody else said it recently. They ordered a Cybertruck from Tesla, one of the biggest companies in the world, and it's been delayed almost 5 years, right? And it's like, okay, like so I think that's the thing. Like we've seen them deliver. Yeah, their timelines weren't necessarily like on track, but I think a lot of they do deliver, and I think like we've seen it in real time. Why would Disney be like, yeah, here's like we're gonna test our product, so we're gonna give you Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, you
Right.
know, all our Star Wars franchise, our best comics, and then we'll just see where it goes. Like, there's no way that you would give that much to
Yeah.
somebody that you didn't have a long term vision with, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to speculate, or maybe I am, the legal side of it.
Yeah.
What would have gone on for Disney? I'm just using Disney, but for Disney to sign off on this, to put their brand in something that was relatively unproven, untested, and the only comparable in the market were things like Bored Apes going out on OpenSea, which was just a huge flash. It like happened so fast, came out of nowhere. And that's not how big brands like Disney tend to approach things. They're more methodical. They do the research, they do the homework, they do the legality. They set up to do it right. And the big pump and dumps, yeah, great. If they believe in the underlying technology, they'll invest in it and they'll
Mhm.
grow it, right? And so I think that's something that I couldn't pass up on that. And when I saw that happening, and then pair it to, and I know you talk about this a lot, and I really agree, the first appearances of these things. This
Right.
is the first, half of this, most of the stuff, first appearances on the blockchain. It's that's going to be worth something down the road. It just the value of that iconic nature of this. That's a big deal. Um, so
Yeah.
to me, that's another thing. I mean, I grew up no internet, right? Like I said, I used to play with metal cars, put them on plastic tracks, and push them manually. Now I have a Lamborghini, I have a DeLorean, I can put them in augmented reality, and I have a remote control car, right? And grew up with remote control cars. I paid 100. My dad would pay $150 for me to have a remote control car, which I would smash 2 hours later and it didn't work, right? Can't
Right.
smash an AR car, right? So I could play with this thing forever. My kids are playing with it now. We take fun photographs with the family in the backyard with T-Rex, come
Wow.
over my niece and all that kind of stuff. It's integrated. And I think that to me is where a Disney, a Marvel, and entertainment, these are entertainment brands. That's entertainment value with your family. That's the connection, right? And I'm having a
Wow.
blast with it. So yeah, sure. Let's keep it going, right?
Yeah, but I love that you said that too, that, like, it's actually having, like, real world implications. I feel like that's, like, it's kind of taken on a life of its own where people just see it only as sometimes as an investment, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, that it's about collecting too," and, like, to see that you actually have a use case. And, you know, one thing you said earlier too, which I really liked, was, like, all these physical comic collectors just storing a slabbed comic. Like, imagine, like, Wiz number 2 from DC. You know,
Right.
you can never open that, so you're just gonna store it and slab it if you even got it for 200,000. Now you
Yeah.
can get it, you can read through it. In the
Right.
future, you could probably show it off in different ways. Like there'll be, you know, you could read it in augmented reality. There's so many things that are there. And on top of that, it can continually be upgraded because it's an
Yeah.
asset, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it's gonna phase out, I think, eventually. I think like there'll always be the people that are like, I wanna smell, you know, the same paper that Stanley drew on. You know
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say? But then I think there's other people that are like, well, this is just a better opportunity, you know?
This is I pulled this out of the box. I've got a few of the boxes in the basement. This was just the closest one. But so
Cool.
this is the one that started it off for me. So it's a
Wow.
Daredevil 53. You see 12 cents on the cover, right? I bought this for $1. And then I ended up buying 54, 55, 56. And so I still
Wow.
don't have a Daredevil one in real life, but I got a bunch of them in BB, right? But
Yeah.
I can there's a smell to this that you
Yeah.
can't describe unless you own an old comic book. It's this
Right.
musty ink paper kind of thing, and it's just that just the nostalgia on that is enormous, right?
It's
And now we got
huge.
Daredevil on beat. He's my favorite character of all time, right? Daredevil, Wolverine,
Uh,
Hawkeye. Those are the big three. So yeah, I tend to focus on, anything that comes out on those guys. Right? I'm all over it. But it goes right back to when I was 15 years old and bought my first comic book.
That's
Right?
insane.
That connection to me is Veve's done a magical job of reinvigorating. I haven't collected comic books in 20 years. I had work, family, mortgages, life insurance, car payments. It all catches up really fast, right? And
Yeah.
then I kind of came over that crescendo, and now I'm, later in my career. I'm a bit of an old guy in here, right? But the time that I can commit to this, my son's now off in university, so I'm not spending 20 hours a week at the ice rink watching him play hockey. And my daughter's getting in higher grades now, and so she's not in baseball as much. My time freed up.
Wow.
And along with that, of course, the thousands of dollars that you're putting into hockey and baseball equipment and all that, right? It frees up. So when I look at my Veve holdings and all that, and I again, not financial advice. I'm no expert in this, but I haven't put anything into this that wouldn't have already been spent elsewhere. I'm just reallocating assets, right? But it's different because I do still have a budget. I sometimes break it, but like I've got this much to spend each month, and I have to
Right.
plan it out. And then all of a sudden they drop freaking Cookie Monster on me. I'm like, budget blown. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I've done is I've been quite methodical, but I built up my stack over almost 2 years now, right? I've sold very, very few things. And usually if I sell something, I'm just trying to reposition into something else, like a better mint or I'm not quite in love with this. I bought it early. I want to go after something else. And so
Yeah.
that's usually what I do. But yeah,
Very
it's getting
cool.
up there. I wouldn't have any idea where that stuff would all go if it was in the house, right? So,
Yeah. It'd be like you said, be going to other things where it's like, okay, we bought some new hockey sticks, goalie equipment before you
that's
know
right.
it. Like, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so,
And it's funny, you say that because, like we obviously saw like a ton of hype around the Sesame Street
mhm.
drop. And I think it was actually Comics and Crypto that came up with they have a new TikTok. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. It's really
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
But they said in that there was like over 1,000 comments, most of them negative. But like, despite what people's reactions are, like this is still significant because we know that in the metaverses we're going to operate only with NFTs. And here
Yeah.
we have Sesame Street's first drop, right? And so I'm like, despite I don't really like the animation, I'm like a Cookie Monster, whatever, but I'm like, it's still going to be a big deal. Like it still is going to matter, right?
Yeah. And I the animation thing, I mean, to me, this is the first appearance of Sesame Street. So
Mm,
they chose Cookie Monster. It's Cookie Monster, Grover, and Big Bird. And those are my three favorites, right? And so, hey, I got one out of the three. So yeah, I'll be getting him. I'll be getting him on the drop if I can. I don't know if this one's going to sell out or not, but it's so much hype. But
yeah.
it depends if we've seen a lot of new users come on board, which I'm not sure. But even still, I want to have a Genesis mint of the first Sesame NFT. And if it's a bad mint, I'll go into the marketplace and I'll hunt for a nicer one, right? And I'll dollar cost average in if it, because usually what we see drops and then the market dips.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I'm not sure people understand how profit and math works, but
Yeah.
that's their deal. But yeah, I'll just go in and I'll DCA it down a little bit if I have to. But to me, that's just too significant. And I mean, I grew up when my dad walked home into the house. I clear as day, I remember this. He came out after work and dropped Pong on the kitchen table. And
Mm.
we're like, what the hell is this? Open it up. Boop, boop. The ball going back. We played it for hours. It was so cool. And
Right.
then, of course, Atari 2600 showed up. And I mean, Tank Battle, all these games in 2D that were so just as basic as you can get. But man, they were fun. And all that happened is the gaming quality improved, right? Like you look
Mhm.
at some of the games that the kids are playing in connected screens now. It's incredible, the detail,
Right.
incredible. But it all started from Atari. So I got a buddy of mine, Rob up the street. He's a Veve holder too, but he still has his Atari 2600 and about 20 unopened game cartridges in his basement.
Shit.
And he's
That's
like,
insane.
"What do I do with this? Like, should I sell it?" And I'm like, "No." right? I got to get you in front of Sean at Comics and Crypto. What to do with this, right? Like, no, don't sell that. That's worth
Right.
a fortune. Why? That was basically the first real mass marketed video game system. It didn't matter that the quality sucked. It
Right.
mattered it was the first and how fun it was and how much time you spent with it. So
Wow.
that, to me, it's the Veve. Who says this, right? History doesn't always repeat, but sure rhymes. This
Yes.
rhyming with my childhood.
Wow.
So there's an instant connection, a gratification, a thank you, Veve, for doing this. It's just been so much fun. So
Dude, you are dropping some gems. That hit me like a ton of bricks there because you're right. Like, despite what it looks like, despite all these different things, like, it's what it means historically.
yeah.
And so, like, I think that is such a, a cool point. And I also wanted to talk about, I guess, Sesame Street quick again. I guess 1, 2, 3 would probably be what the best mint available for that drop. Does that be right? You think?
Boy, if you could get that when they drop Count Dracula. That's 1939 MC1 talk right there.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3s on anything counting numbers.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a subgroup of people that know coding between, what does a letter C mean and what's its numerical equivalent, and
True.
they'll probably try and hunt that out. But yeah, it's a big deal because a lot of the brands that we have on the app right now, yes, they're incredibly nostalgic and they're entertainment based.
Hmm.
Sesame Street is an education based client. So when I found that was coming, it's like, well, hold on a second. Educational client believing in NFTs?
Hmm.
Wow, that's something new. And yes, they make revenue to support their nonprofit, their, all the development work that they do in the educational side. And this is helping them do that. They see where this is going. They
Right.
probably suspect, and if I'm speculating again, that NFTs are going to be how all of the books and everything that they download on their website for use are going to be distributed in the years ahead. That's going to be something. Why wouldn't they learn about this now? And that, again, I know we're sort of like fifth season, fifth generation, but it's still there first.
Mhm.
And so we're going to see this for years to come, right?
Wow.
Years to come. But these are milestone moments. And so, yeah, I'm going for the drop for sure.
Yeah. And I
Me
mean, I think
an iPhone 8, but yeah.
yeah.
So
And so I'm gonna actually premiere this probably like an hour before the drop, which is good. So everybody that's watching right now is gonna be like, "Oh, I'm about to go." But a lot of people that I've talked to think it's gonna go below retail
yeah, yeah.
because and so, but I think this is sometimes the reason I still participate is because I'm like, I could still get that special mint.
Well,
So I
yeah,
risk it
for
sometimes.
sure, right? I do the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I'm like, oh my god, that's not a great mint. Come
Mhm.
on, secret rare. It's like
Yeah.
hoping, right? But
Yeah.
it's certain ones like the comic drops, because there tends to be quite a few of them. Not so much now, which I'm absolutely adoring. But
Yeah.
I still think, well, if it's a book that's big enough, like there was no way I wasn't going after Giant Size X-Men and all these great books that are coming. I don't win a lot on the drop, but I still would keep those mints because they're Genesis.
Yeah.
And on maybe the B, C level comics, if I don't win the drop, great, I'll go and I'll hunt out some of the mints for them. But to me, there's certain things in this app that are going to be incredibly significant, where being the first just to own it, forget the mint. It's like walking into an artist gallery and saying, paint me something that no one else has ever seen before. And then you get that first production.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I used to work in these magazines, newspapers, I used to watch the first print, come off a press. And then
Wow.
you would be looking at it for errors, right? Because if there's an error in that first one, that's the stop the press, right? Now we got to go back and fix it. But the people that I used to work with back in the days held on to those. I had a guy, he had a room stacked full of misprint first issues, and they're worth a fortune now. So that, there's another little aspect there in this Genesis thing. I don't know if it's going to mean anything.
Yeah.
To me, this is something that me and someone like Denis, we talk about all the time. It's like, what could that mean to be just the first holder of something? These Daredevil NFTs, right? Veve burned half of them. There's only 2,600 left.
I
He
know.
is an enormous character in Marvel's history,
I know.
and he's going to be featured in everything coming up. He's got 18 episodes on Disney Plus. Who gets 18 episodes? I do film production, for some studios and stuff. Nobody gets more than 9. 9 is a really big deal, right? That means that they've given you pretty much a whole season to play with. They've given Daredevil like 3 years. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. We have him. We have him, right?
So I would just want to go in on this because I agree with you, and I look at something like Black Panther with not only the secret rare but so many other variants, and I
Yeah.
think it's like 200 plus gems, and Daredevil I think is like sub retail right now. It's like
He's like
37 gems or
35,
something.
40 below
Which is
retail.
wild, right? I
Yeah.
mean, no financial advice, but I totally agree. In terms of being logistical and, like, looking at everything, like, objectively, like, you would presume that it would at least be similar priced or something,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it goes back to like those Black Panthers, though. I mean, I give them credit. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Like they just look really, really
True.
sharp. You can see the detail in the suits and all that.
Yeah.
Daredevil, not quite to that extent, but again, it's still the first, and it's
Correct.
pairs with the comic book and the shows. Like there's a lot of things like in the comic book industry, you tend to see spikes in values when a movie's coming, or there's a release of a new character, or there's going to be a feature. You'll see the physical books obviously go up in value. And we have that immediacy opportunity in Veve. I don't have to grade the issue. I don't have to try and find someone to sell it on eBay. I don't have to worry anymore about, oh my God, what if it gets wrecked in mail and the guy calls me back? He's like, yeah, it showed up. It's junk. I'm not buying this anymore. And then I got to take the cost to send it back. Like frustration,
Yeah.
frustration being in the physical space, right? That's
Mhm.
partly why there's value, right? That's going to inflate the price because I got to cover my shipping costs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But this is easy button, right? Just takes it away.
It's true, man. And so, like, you're telling me all this great stuff, right? Like all these things, why you believe, why, and talking about like reflecting on what I believe as well. And we agree, and everybody on VV kind of agrees with why these things are so important. But like when it comes to the marketing component, it seems like there's not a lot of traction. Like it seems like a lot of these people aren't either grasping what we're grasping, or maybe there's too much education. But like with your background in marketing, like I guess what would you be doing right now to like, get on these new people? I mean, maybe I'm not trying
Yeah,
to be a loaded question because I'm sure there's a lot more things,
yeah.
Vivi has going on that we don't know about, but I'm just curious, like, what you think on that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm sure that the team must be inundated with ideas, projects, tech
Yeah.
issues. Um, you bring on a developer you think is the right developer in the early stages, and it turns out we now have to pivot because this is what the market is pushing us towards, and that person doesn't have that skill set. Now you have to rehire, retrain. Yeah, that's why deadlines are missed. That's why to me deadlines are, yeah, they're out there as goals,
Right.
but they don't have to be hard performance measures unless you have something incredibly specific you have to do. So I know all that's going on the one side. And then you're always going to have that question, when's the right time to mass market? Are we ready for it?
Right.
And I'm a lot more patient on this side of it because I would rather err on the side of caution and be ready to handle the mass adoption quickly than to rush. The masses come in, it fails, the app crashes, they can't do anything they want, and then we lose that because I mean, we see what's going on right now in social. There's a lot of FUD, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of FUD, and the FUD is just based on timing issues. Like, when is all this happening? FUD because someone comes in and the project fails them is damaging FUD. So there's two types of
I see what
FUD,
you're saying.
two types, right? And so that's kind of where I'm thinking that the approach is a little bit more methodical. Let's grow slowly, steadily, and assuredly, and that's the Amazon growth chart, right? Look over time how long it took to get to where they are now. There's
Mhm.
no rush here. And I think that's, from a marketing perspective, the crypto industry kind of, raised a lot of eyebrows. This is happening way too fast. What's going on here? Like, we don't even know what half of this means, what it's doing. How do I access it? And that can be dangerous as well. But to me, that's the approach. I would probably say, the hunch, I would rather, if we were talking as, a client, whatnot, we'd be like, okay, what are the 2 or 3 kind of key areas and audiences that you want to go after? Let's focus. And why are they each unique? Crypto buyers, and I think probably, on the curve, we're a lot younger in our overall audience in Veve right now. That's a different mindset. It's fast, it's quick. Hey, I'm having a blast flipping gems. It's slot machines in Vegas. Let's see what I can do, right? Me, on the other hand, right, I spent a hell of a lot of time doing homework, research. What is this? What are NFTs? What are the legalities? What does ownership look like? What the heck's a blockchain? Like, I had to retrain everything I knew about Internet 2.0 to then understand where this is going. So I took a lot of time. So to reach someone like me, I'm not the quick flip, hey, make 10, 20% on a drop and then use those monies to do the next one. And you don't care anything about holding on to these assets. I'm holding, I'm stacking, but I'm researching, I'm going after very specific things. I'm educational needs based. So you have to tell me why this isn't a big deal. So the content, for instance, on Medium is great, but let's start, how do we get more of that content connected into Veve? So the two, you can go to Veve's website and here's the links to those contents. Like, I would start structuring things like that based on who you want to go after. And then there's the newbies, like, the one big thing, just maybe side note, another really key issue that brought me into this app was how easy it was to get into it.
Right.
Signing up on Apple Pay. Now I don't even need to use Apple Pay. I can just, here's my credit card. Soon crypto paying. Like, there's a variety of ways that people can buy into this. For me, again, easy button. Just put my credit card in. I get points on my credit card. So sure, I'll use that, right? And then that was very different to me because, when remember when SafeMoon showed up and there was hype, I said to myself, okay, you know what? I'm going to buy some of this. I had no belief in this project whatsoever. And if it goes, okay, I was wrong again. But I need to understand the intricacies of getting this.
Yeah.
And it took me hours. I failed 2 or 3 attempts to even buy it. I was on YouTube videos. I was on articles. I was trying to figure out how to do this because other people were doing it. And this seemed to me like, here's a new technology, like pancake swap. Like, what is all this? Incredibly difficult. And so even when OpenSea started dropping NFTs, right? Same thing. I got to convert my fiat to crypto, put it into this app, see if it works. There's no IP. There's no real, I don't know what's the protections here. And then Veve comes up with this nice little safety deposit box system. I just said, this is again, easy button, right? And so that was my long story.
It was a good story, man. I mean, I totally get what you're saying because it's a safety deposit box and it's the things you really want all mixed into one package. But what I love that you said too was like, right now, I've actually have a lot of people in the comments on my previous video of mine that like debated this issue. They're like, oh, well, Veve wants to get these new newbie collectors. That's why it's like, collectors at heart. And other people were saying, well, no, they should go after like the crypto people that are already here. But people are like, well, if you want to get those, you got to have interoperability because that's appealing more to them. And all this debate, right? But what I found interesting that you said to me was like, you don't have to go after one audience. Like you can be going after multiple audiences and multiple different approaches.
Yeah.
So
we do that a lot. That's our it's kind of my company's mantra, right? Like, you can advertise today in a number of different ways at the same time. It doesn't have to be like the trouble with marketing back in the day was it was hard. Like, everything was expensive. Like, when there was just newspapers, TV, radio, those were your mass appeal, right? Direct mail. Newspaper ads, if you look back in history, right? Big full page ads had 100 different messages in them because they didn't know who they were talking to. Everybody might want this, but you might want this color. You might remember like auto ads. They would list 1,000 cars that they had on the freaking lot, right? One buyer is going to find that one. People would look through these to find that one car. Ridiculous, right? Wow. Today, yeah, you can have one set of ad messaging going to a younger, more astute crypto audience. One set of messaging is going to maybe an older, slower, I need more education audience. One is somebody that's in between. One is a new collector. One is a very seasoned collector. So, I mean, the technology today, it's kind of, if you've ever seen Minority Report with Tom Cruise, I mean, we're kind of there now. So we can, for instance, what's called geofencing or location targeting, all the comic books in, let's say Vive's doing another San Diego Comic-Con. So all the comic books in San Diego, we can actually collect the data of all the people that have gone in, inside, and out those comic book shops, the physical shops, because your phone has a GPS system in it, location services, with a device ID. Now, I don't know it's Chad. I don't know anything about you personally. I just know that this random number was seen going in and out of several comic books over the past 30 days. You are going to be in my targeting profile for when the Comic-Con is coming. So I know where you've been gives me insights into what you like to do. And then I pair that with your on-site behavior data, right? I look up a lot of Marvel stuff. I go to a lot of theaters on Marvel release dates. I read content with Marvel in it, that type of scenario where what you can mine from available open data without crossing into impacting personal data begins to formulate very, very critical processes in how you set your marketing up. And so I believe Veve will be doing that because they'll have to, because it's not to sound too generalized, but longer in career at my stage of life, I have more flexible income options than when I was younger trying to buy my first condo. And so those are two very different time of life issues with two very different budget availability issues, but two different personas. I'm now buying Veve NFTs because they connect back to that nostalgia. Somebody that's new to it, Miles Morales, great example, right? I still don't have one. I want one, but I want Miles more to give to my son, who is more of a Miles Morales fan, because in 20, 30 years, Miles is going to be really big. But to me, it's always Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Like, there's no question, right?
Yeah.
Peter handed the torch to Miles. And so to me, Peter is the FA Spider-Man kind of thing, right? And so those are different timing segments again. So buying Miles today is probably not a bad idea if you're prepared to hold him for 20 years. That probably could be one of the best not financial advice, right? But one of the best decisions you could make in terms of a longevity of a character that we know Marvel is going to spend a lot of time focusing on. That's Daredevil, right? Daredevil's been around forever. Had that little Ben Affleck movie came out, which wasn't my favorite.
Everybody says the same thing.
Poor guy, right? But then Charlie Cox comes out and does it on Netflix and absolutely crushed it. That series, if you haven't seen it, it's so closely representative of the original book and the nature of the character, and it's gritty and it's dark. And that's, I think, why it took a while to get to Disney. But now that they're there, please keep that going. I don't want to see another She-Hulk, kind of let's make Daredevil a comedian. It's not him, right? But that to me is again, like I'm sort of looking at this the next 3 to 5 years. Daredevil is going to be enormously popular. I think they're setting him up like another Captain America, right? This is where the image of the new superhero is going to be in the streets. The local, like Spider-Man was popular because he was local, right? Wow. Thor is kind of, what would you call it? Cosmic. He's everywhere, right? So Daredevil and Spidey, they fight for the common people, right? So I think that resonates particularly in a market right now where the world is sort of on fire and everybody's scared of everything, right? Scared of what to say, scared of what to do, scared of how to, react. It's weird in a way.
Yeah. Man, all amazing points. And there's so much inertia, right? Like, it feels like it's a lot of, it's hard to move that big boulder and push it over the edge and be like, all right, come on in. Like, there's a lot of, it feels difficult right now because there's just so much reaction to it all. But, one thing I just want to get back to as well is like, should Veve really be like looking inside the app as more often to see like, okay, like I know they have like probably engagement stats on like who's looking at who's spending 20 minutes a day in AR,
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
who's just like in the market all day, just like waiting for that special mint? Who are our users? Like, are the majority like, you know, 18 to 50-year-old men? Or are we seeing like actually some, people like you said, are 50 to 60-year-old classes like the friggin' biggest whales,
Mhm.
and then the 18-year-olds are in there flipping. Like, I don't know, like, and so
Yeah.
and would that like then be very valuable data to then like extrapolate and be like, okay, this is how we find those people now,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, I think right? Everything today is data. It's data first. Everything we
Right.
do. So my ad agency that where I work, I mean, that's been a traditional agency since its inception.
Yeah.
And our digital team got in there and we're like, no, everything stops today. It's everything is data first. It has to be.
Mm.
Because if you don't know who you're talking to, how do you know what to say? And so your data from your own system, we call that first party data. There's actually a term for this. And
Wow.
so this is your own operated customer data. So you have to sign up in the app. You have to say, where do I live, and age and all that kind of stuff. So they've got a lot of that personal data. Then they've got the usage data. That's a really great point you bring up. I have a lot of things that are animated that I still haven't actually looked at yet because,
Mhm.
for me, it's time. But
Yeah.
also, the priority is just let's get them first, and then I'll play with them second. Other people like Metaverse Life, like there's some enormously talented people creating these animated content pieces that just blow my mind. That's
Yeah.
a different user. That's somebody with a big skill set in AR and whatnot, but they also might be AR gamers, right? Gaming is an
Mhm.
enormous target for this, I would think, because that potential for moving these into a gaming environment down the road, that's going to be exciting for the gaming industry. That's its own segment. So yeah, to your point, who has what? Who has a enormous amount of assets that just buy them, hold them, and that's all they do? Who
Mhm.
though is in the app reading their comics?
Right.
Show of hands, everybody. Who's read the comic book that you bought? Right? I bet it's not that much, right?
It's
'Cause
true.
everybody just wants to say they have it or flip it or move it. But that's, to me, that's why I buy several copies, right? I might buy a decent normal mint just to read it, enjoy it. But I'm enjoying it. Like, I've never read really in any real fashion Marvel Comics #1. Now
Right.
I've read it like, I don't know, 10 times. To me, like, having that ability to engage, that's another thing. Like, who's a book reader? Who's a comic book reader? Who's a comic book enthusiast? Um, who probably wishes they could read their comic books and can't because they're in a slab. That again becomes its own target segment. You can
Mhm.
target by character, you can target by show. I know Vivi's talked about this, which I find incredibly encouraging, right? They're going to start doing more work talking to Disney fans. They're going to do more work talking to Star Wars fans and so on and so on. Again, individual segments and opportunities, which I think is going to be fantastic. And that's why
Yeah.
I keep buying Boba Fett's right now. I mean, that what
What is it
he's
like?
selling for.
I know.
Thank you, market.
Yeah, it's true. That's how I see it too.
Yeah.
There's this one post by a guy who bought like way like I forget how many, but it was like he said he was gonna allocate $20,000 to it like 8 months ago. Yeah, you saw that, right?
Yeah. Um,
I mean,
tough right now. That's a tough pill to swallow right now when you're
yeah,
like, oh my God, whoops. Because he's
yeah,
probably got to pay the visa off, right? Like,
yes,
I don't
yeah,
know if I would ever recommend anyone buy, investments on a credit card, but
yeah.
long term, he pays that visa off and he holds on to all of those assets. And again, what if speculative down the road,
Mhm.
the $80 price point people think is ridiculous because he's selling at 800 or whatever, right? Who knows? So at one point, MC1 was $2, $3,
Yes, I remember that.
right? That's where I really goofed up.
I think most people did because I
Oh,
think a lot of people are like, "Are these just facsimiles?" Or like,
yeah.
"What does this even
That was the
mean?"
question, right? What are these? Because I can go buy a facsimile almost anywhere. And the
Yeah.
that was the challenge for me when I was starting to think, okay, maybe I should get into this. And oh yeah, well, look, Fantastic Four #1 sells at 7, it's now at 2. Yeah, nobody's buying in.
Yeah.
Right?
I know, and I remember at the time too, they didn't even have the augmented reality component, so you could
Yeah,
only like it was just like a picture and then you just walk through the pages, so it was like,
yeah. Yeah.
but it's
But
crazy looking
yeah,
back.
that's Atari to, AR gaming, right?
Yeah.
The platform was set up, the foundation was ready. You just have to wait for the technology to catch up. This is embarrassing. Part of my career, but I used to install internet kiosks in airports and hotels. There were no flip phones. There were barely, like, the mobile phone was that huge brick thing, right?
Yeah.
And you get off the plane or get to the hotel, and you could just plop $1 in and check your Hotmail, right? And this was like a big deal. And we were putting these in like US military installations and hotel chains. And we had a guy that he bought 4 of them. He owned a little beach cafe in the Cayman Islands, and he bought 4 of these. He was making 10 grand US a day per machine, right?
Gee.
People plopping toonies in so they could send photos and emails back home. You could see the connection issue was coming. People wanted mobile communication. So your option was a kiosk, right? Today, did people even know how to spell kiosk? Like, it doesn't make sense anymore, right?
Yeah.
Technology caught up to deliver the product that was always meant to be. And I think that's right where Veve is kind of inserting their business opportunity. They're hitting this at the right point, right? Tapping nostalgia, popularity, all the assets, the benefits of collecting, but now you have usability and I just said that to me is really, really cool. And that's where I grew up. I watched internet start, right? It was mind-boggling, and I'll tell you, everybody fudded it. The government's coming after us. They're going to have all the access to your credit cards, blah, 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 you name it. There was an argument for it, trying to stop it, right? This isn't right. This is a military communication tool. This isn't a public, system. And here we are today. You and I are using the internet for basically for free. There's no me having to call a number to say how, this is what it's going to charge me to talk to you.
Right.
I lived through all that, right? Now we're doing this. The technology caught up, right? It was mind-boggling watching Star Trek when they had 2 people on teleprompters talking to each other, right? That'll never happen, right? What if I just got out of the shower and the phone rings? It was scary, right? So
Right.
everybody fudded it. This is ridiculous, right? Today we use these systems and you don't even think about it. That's where we're going to be with NFTs. No one's going to use the term NFT. It's just going to be a contract. It's going to be proof of ownership. It's going to be your mortgage paper. It's going to be your car lease. That's just how they're going to deliver it. It won't be paper anymore. I have to sign it, right? There's not really many fax machines anymore. And that's not that old. That was 10 years ago. We were sending contracts over fax machines. Now we use DocuSign and whatnot, right? So again, that's, to me, NFT is just a momentary term in time, and
Wow.
the public will move past this quickly. So
Whew, that felt so good, man. You saying
I
that.
hated that thing. Oh man.
Yeah, but it's
Not
so cool.
that.
Right? Like, cause even, like, with, like, some of these comics and all these things that are dropping, I'm
Mhm.
like, "Wow, like, this is the one time digitally that this is gonna happen, like, forever." Like,
Yeah,
this will be the first appearance on chain of these specific comics. So even, like,
yeah,
future things, like the second print, the third print, or the third mint rather,
yeah,
but they're all gonna try to catch up to this first stuff. So I'm like, it's an amazing opportunity right now
right.
to be at the forefront of it all while everyone is, like, trashing it, because once we're in that world, and like
Right.
you said, NFTs are everything, people are gonna be like, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
Why didn't I jump in?" You
right.
know?
Yeah. And I missed out a lot of things growing up, right? So
Yeah.
I know I wrote about this in one of those, why do I like digital collecting? My Amazon example. Like, I bought 100 shares of, no, 10 shares of Amazon, I think it was, maybe at like $10 a share, right? I didn't have a lot of money when I was younger. I was trying to get my career going, all that. And it was on a bet. My bet is that it would hit $15 a share with a guy that's like, no one is going to read books on their computers. Like, why would you do that? Like, the whole experience of reading a book is with a coffee on your couch, right? Blah, blah, blah. It was almost, it sounds so weird, right? It was inconceivable that people would do that. And so people fudded Amazon, right? You're going to kill bookstores, right? What are you doing? You're going to put all these people out of work, blah, blah, blah. Well, I won that bet, right? Cashed out at 15. And then, I don't know, like a month later, it was trading at $300 a share. Missed again. And
Yeah.
then it went to like $3,000 a share, and then it had to split and all this kind of stuff, right? But long, steady, patience, process, improvement. Now, I think people read books online before they read physical books, right? And so that intersection of where we are with being able to read comic books online, Marvel Unlimited, they knew this years ago when they started that. Vivi's the next evolution of that, saying, well, yeah, now, but you can also own it. You could sell it if you want. That's how I believe there's ownership in this. And I get a lot of, well, how do you verify who owns this? Does that bug you? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, the Vivi is the trading platform. So if that means that I'm buying and selling through that, fine. I buy and sell through Amazon. It doesn't mean that I expect to see every product on Amazon also on eBay or at a garage sale, right? That's where I'm buying and selling those things. To me, I think, I hope in a way that's what ends up happening with Vivi. It's like, I don't need to see these things on OpenSea or some other platform. OpenSea users are going to come to Vivi because that's where you have to come to get this. And that is going to give them a bit of a premium status that will impact market floors and everything because they're selling premium assets, right? That's to me, that's, you would go to a specific store to buy a specific shirt because of the brand, or that store is more popular or more quality or whatever that is. You don't see the same product on every shelf everywhere. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think it was Danny Boy. You might be he was on one of my interviews as
Oh yeah,
well.
yeah,
And he thinks it's good, especially for the moment, because it's attractive to the licensors, and
yeah.
then there's more opportunity to get, um, more people in the app and more eyeballs,
Right.
right, around these different products. But then there's other people that are like, there's no way that
Yeah.
I would purchase something from Veve because it's not interoperable, because it's not in my own keys or in
It's
cold
a
storage,
huge
right?
deal. It's a big debate right now, right?
Yeah,
Because that operability means, well, what else can I do with my asset,
yeah,
right? Can I flip it over here? Can I sell it? Like if I have an asset, I can have a garage sale. I can put it on Facebook Marketplace. I can go put it in a consignment store. I have all
yeah,
these different options where I can sell it, right? But each of those options means I'm competing with, I'm going to sell it if I'm the lowest price, right?
right.
So to me, it's like, wow, still, if I really wanted to move something and I needed a premium buyer, I don't know, I'm going to call Heritage Auctions, right? I'm going to
Right.
do it differently. And to me, that's just my opinion on this.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool though to hear
But I
that.
also think it's not, maybe easier is the wrong word, but for, IP, like for James Bond to say we're going to distribute through Vivi, there's some safety in that for them. They know where their assets are and how they're moving around the market. They're not all over the place everywhere, where sometimes they still have to worry, like, what happens to our brand when we let it out wild,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I'm interested to see with this, the whole Mickey Mouse thing when they lose their
I know, I was thinking about that too recently.
yeah, because suddenly you can just, anybody can use it. But I still think you're going to have to abide by Disney IP protocol and whatnot. But to me, that just seems like this is a nice central place because, going back to the legal system, right? This is just one platform they had to produce legal for. Not sure
Mm,
there's continuance on that, on, what does this mean? NFTs out in market, right? You and I, like Metaverse Life is using NFTs to produce these great video content. Now it's
yes.
very, very positive, right? What if, so that's sometimes I think that whole legal issue is what also puts delay in things. It's very time consuming for any time the lawyers get involved because
Yeah.
there's so much back and forth, right? But that's how they're going to protect their brand long term. That's going to happen first. And so,
I
but
know. It's interesting that you bring that up because I always think like, like I guess there's ramifications from both. Like if Vivi's servers crashed, like then you would still have them on IMX,
yeah,
but then it's at the same time if you're on OpenSea and like some scammer hacked somebody's wallet like and stole like 100 partners,
right.
and then he just like and then you never see them again because they're locked up in cold
Yeah,
storage. Like, what would that say for Disney? And I guess either or is negative, but like it's a space where you need to be doing so much due diligence
yeah.
and you're a huge brand like you said that you got to be really thinking about this intricately, right?
It makes me think about, you just brought up something, that the thought, like, what if, you did that, someone stole 7 partner statues, because when Veve mints them, they mint a very finite number, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like the business can call you up and say, "Oh, Chad, we know that happened. So look, we're going to refund you and we're going to provide you your 7 Where would they get them from? Right?
Right.
Would they have to mint 7 more? And then what happens if those other 7 turn up? But I don't know. These are the types of questions I like to leave for lawyers.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're thinking about this exact thing and
Yeah.
being like, what would those ramifications be, and what would that look like, and how would the royalties work, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It could be
yeah,
everything. So I don't know. That's weird. But
yeah,
yeah, we'll leave
but
that with
yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. I mean, and you're hanging out with the Veve crew, right? This
Oh,
weekend or
yes.
something, or yeah,
So, I guess, yeah, it was Metaverse Life. He just put that note out on Twitter. He's like, "Is anybody in Vancouver?" I'm like, "Here." So I said, "Yeah, I'll hit up this." And I'm not sure how many people are going. We're going to. I think the plan right now is meet somewhere downtown at this afternoon, and then I think the details are to be finalized. So we're all watching our Twitter messages here, but it should be pretty cool because if I'm not mistaken, and I apologize, but this is the first sort of official Veve meetup in Canada.
crazy.
Yeah, we beat Toronto. Like that never
That's probably
happened.
fair. Like, I'm sure there's been some smaller events, but like, I don't know anyone. Like, I haven't met up with anyone here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's
wow,
been great. I can't stress this enough. Like the amount of fantastic people that I have enjoyed meeting because of this app. It's it's been life changing. So, very, very good friend of mine now, Denis. You see him on Twitter at Mazarel, I think is his name. He's from Montreal, but he and I met on a My Collectibles live stream. I think Aaron was like, "Oh, one day I might try and get over to Vancouver. Maybe I'll see." And I'm like, "Hey, man, come on! Like, we'll go for a beer. It'd be great. I'd love to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, you're in Vancouver." And then this guy, Denny, he's like, "Yeah, me too." And all of a sudden, like, "Oh, hey, man, let's go for a beer and meet up." And now it turns out he's a pretty avid comic collector. He's in the comic shops like almost weekly, and he's taught me so much stuff. Everything that I thought I knew, he knows 100 times more. And so he's been impactful in the decisions that I make when I'm, grabbing things in the app, and we bounce ideas off each other all the time. And it ended up that when ASM 4 showed up, the Sandman, turned out that that's like one of our favorite Sandman or Spider-Man antagonists. And we're like, "Hey, did you know that the 1962 rare is for sale right now, but it's like $200?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I blew my budget. I don't have $200." He goes, "Let's go halfers." So I'm like, "Let's do it."
wow,
So yeah, we put a little plan together and we've documented our little process. But now we both have, half ownership of the 1962 ASM,
wow,
right? And so I thought that would have never happened if I hadn't found this app, found Aaron, found all this, right? Found him. So yeah, and
dude,
now we're going to go and meet a whole bunch of people that we see and talk with on Twitter all the time, and now we're going to meet in the physical world. And if that's anything, that's kind of what I write about in those blogs, like digital, right?
yeah.
Digital, physical coming together. Like now it's happening in actual reality. It's blowing my mind, and so yeah, I can't wait to meet these guys.
Wow,
It's like
buddy.
I can't. It's so much fun. It sounds weird. Like this is my inner nerdism coming out, but man, this is great. It's just great. My
And it's so
family's kind of
cool.
become behind me now. They thought I was crazy. Everybody I know thought I was crazy. What are you doing? Like, NFTs, this is nothing. Like, man, you could be doing all this, doing all that. And I said, yeah, but if it all went to zero, I'm not losing my friends because of it. I've got all these great experiences from it. I was on the drop Ryan, Ryan, he used
Yeah,
to do,
he's great.
yeah, he invited me to a podcast once, and or a stream on Twitter, and he asked me, he's like, "What's one of the nicest things that you think about when you think about Veve?" And I said, like the time probably I spent with my son in here,
Wow.
because he's 18 now, but his experience of Marvel was cinematic, right? Everything was on big screens, or we went through the whole MCU on Disney Plus, right? Spent hours doing that. He'd never read a comic book, didn't even really know what comic books were. And then after we finished that, I took him into the basement. I pulled out one of these boxes. And I'm like, dude, this is a comic book. He's like, what's that? Right? It was blew his mind. He's like, Dad, can I start reading some of those? And I said, no. But what we can do, here's this little app. And then suddenly we're in there, and then boom, like immediately he was in a group of 10 of his buddies. And what I loved about it was they would do the homework before a drop. Right? I didn't tell him this. He just said, okay, well, what's valuable? When did this comic book come out? What's special about this character and this one? And then we would communicate, and he would end up, he won the secret rare on the Avengers 4, is it 4 or 8? Sorry, the Captain America. And
that's
like,
nice.
Yeah, I said, you little bugger, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even get the drop that day, because that's when it was hard to win drops, right? Remember that?
Oh my God.
And he pulls a secret rare, and I said, you little bugger. But so yeah, I mean, like, time. And now we talk about all the different drops, we're waiting for the accounts to merge and all that kind of stuff. But we've shared a lot of time. Just like now I'm sharing time with a lot of my friends and, guys up the street I hang out with. They're like, yeah, man, I really appreciate you getting me into this. Like, I can't, it's going so many years back. And we used to get on a bus to go downtown to go to comic book shops and all that kind of stuff. Right. And so, yeah, it's just been, to me, and this community, I mean, that it's weird to me in a way too, right? I put the tweet about Sesame Street out that I posted on my LinkedIn page, and my LinkedIn profiles had quite a lot of exposure to that, all of it positive. And I haven't seen anything negative. And all of a sudden, I think that tweet's been read almost like 13,000 times. It blows my mind. And I think I've had 4 negative/doubtful comments.
Wow.
So that to
Good
me,
ratio.
also, yeah, but that's telling, like, the positivity, the excitement, the interest of where this is going, vastly outweighs the negative.
Right.
And so that's kind of always been just sort of my mantra, like, why be negative? Right? People like positivity. So everything good comes when you're happy all the time. I just look at my career. I don't do well when I'm in bad moods at work. So it's like, why would I not be like that?
Right.
Be positive.
So cool, man. I mean, I love hearing that. And I love how much of this is also like the joy of the collecting for
Yeah.
you, right? Because I feel like that's being missed out. And just hearing your stories with like your son, your friends. I'm a little sad though that your son's already getting more on the drops and notices, because I'm like, oh, there's another competitor for me.
Well, his phone's better too. When it came time to upgrade, right? My wife
Yeah.
and I were like, well, let's give this to the kids and we'll wait. So yeah, I missed drop after drop after drop.
Yeah, same.
So yeah. But yeah, it's awesome. And he's having a blast with it now. And and then even when I'm at like, I play beer league hockey, right? I'm a goalie. That's probably kind of why I'm a bit weird. But even the guys in the change room, they're like, hey, you're into that Veve thing, right? I'm like, well, how'd you find out about it? I don't know. I just heard about it on the internet or something like that. Like, it's starting to permeate, right? There's a little bit of that organic happening. And I think the excitement just about where all the space is going, it's intriguing to people, right? It's new. And people ask me, like, tell me about the tech behind it. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going down that road. I'm going to keep it simple, right? You had Internet 1.0, then you had 2.0, and now we have 3.0. And this is going to be 3.0. So are you thinking ahead, or do you want to go back to when it was 1.0? Right?
Yeah. I think that's a good question to ask. I like that. I'm going to use that going forward. Yeah.
Just simplicity, because the technology is never going to stop advancing, right? How we read the books on Veve today will be vastly improved in 5 years. We won't even remember how we do it today. So, but that to me is that's kind of the special part. That's also one of my little personal strategies. I tend to try and focus a lot more effort on sort of those grails and seasons sort of 1, 2, 3, because that's like the first year that we were doing this. But
it's funny. A lot of people say the same, right? Like, anybody that I talk to is like, okay, it's the macro things, the things that matter most, first season. So I love that. And Chris, you write a bunch of articles, right? Like, I mean, I've seen a lot on Go Collect. Like, what does that look like in terms of getting your blog like onto there? Is that like how does that work?
Yeah. So again, I got to give credit back to Veve, right? It just,
Yeah.
this passion, I felt like, oh, full disclosure, right? My wife got sick and tired of me talking about this all the time. And so I've got a few friends that we can unload on each other, right? But I thought I need another way to share this. And so I started just writing notes and whatnot down. And then I commented a bunch of times on some Go Collect comments in the articles that they were putting out. And I just reached out to them and I said, I've been following your site for years. I've been reading your writers for years. What's involved in this? And she's like, "Oh, are you a writer?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Oh, well, yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit. And what's your take?" And I just said, I've grown up through technology, not having it and now being fully immersed in it. I've lived through that experience. I think maybe that's a unique angle that I could talk about. And they agreed. And they said, well, let's put it out, see what happens. And so yeah, I wrote that first one on, what do I like about digital collecting? And it really somehow resonated with people. And I'm not a writer. I don't do that. I have people at my company that do the content and the writing. I just give them the ideas. And so I thought, well, let's give this a go. But they're surprisingly not quick, because I need to sometimes, I got to do homework. I got to fact check, verify, to download images and all this kind of stuff and link to certain things. But, they take sometimes a few hours. Some I've got in the hopper that I've been working on for weeks. And then some I have to rewrite completely because it's like, that doesn't work anymore. Right. But
Wow.
it was just sort of like this. It was like an outlet to say, let's talk about this and share it. I don't really, like, I'm not great on the video side. I don't have anything set up to do it. I've always said I've kind of got a face for radio, right? And so to me, writing was more like an easier approach, I think, for me. But
I think you got a face for video. I could see you doing well. You're a handsome dude, man. I feel like
well,
you'd kill it with the yeah.
thank you very much. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's just how it was. And I thought, well, you guys are killing it. Like I say, you're one of my favorite shows. I watch all the time, but you're doing it right, and I thought, you guys do this, I'll focus maybe on the writing side, where because there's still people I think that read, and like blogs and stuff like that. So I thought, well, I'll use that as my little contribution, and yeah, I know how to go. So
Man, it's so
uh,
cool. It's so cool how invested everybody is. It's like so different than other or other movements. It's like where you see like just a few people leading the charge, but like on Vivi, it's like almost like everybody's either big on Twitter or they're big on YouTube or they're like trying to make a difference and grow the space. Like they're
yeah,
almost like an activist
yeah,
for this stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
we're a passion group.
we are.
I don't know, and I like. There's so many people I love watching, like Vivi Magic and
Oh
Sanjay
yeah.
and all these guys, and Hanano with his new podcast. Like, everybody's jumping in on this. Aaron, I got to shout out to Aaron at My Collectibles. I mean, that guy
Oh,
is
he's amazing. Yeah.
we're meeting him tonight, and I can't wait. Like, he is so energetic. I have to see if that's how he is in real life
He's
too.
gonna be like, "Hey Chris, how are
Yeah.
you?"
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hey, man, we're gonna be hugging." It's great.
Yeah.
This group of people, and I mean, I've seen tons of businesses. I've watched businesses I've worked with come and go and fail and all that stuff. And the one thread has always been, boy, if you can't get people believing in you, you're gonna have a really hard time getting them to buy from you or to
Mm,
invest in you or to trust you. And I just don't feel that here. I mean, what do we have? A few 100,000 people on Twitter alone that, yeah,
yeah.
there's a few naysayers. There's always going to be. That's, to me, I've grown up in the world of media, and I'll tell you, like, a little inside trade secret: negativity sells, right? So you
Mm,
look at most major publishers. A great example is the Sesame Street, right? It was NBC, I think, went out and said their headline was the negative spin,
right.
right? All the other, like, the coin desks and all the crypto, right? Everything was positive. Oh, wow, Sesame Street chose Vivi. NBC goes out and puts that negative spin on it. I'm like, why did you do that? Right? Because it gets clicks. And a lot of writers today are paid by those click views and all that kind of stuff on those major publications. And so it makes sense. And somebody has to put the negative narrative out, and that kind of, quells you. You can't be always positive, straight up growth. That's not natural. And so you need some of that. And Futter's, although they have their own, you know, sentiment, sometimes they're needed in an ecosystem because they question things. They may make you look at something a different way that you were very focused on something else. And so I love the fact that they're out there.
Yeah.
We don't need too many.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, that is out there and it does help a little bit, right? But 9 out of 10 people that are, you know, are in my space, I just so positive. So
Wow.
positive. We all support each other, share each other, right? Like what we put out. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a partner statue yet. I'll throw it out there. I'm working on it, right? But when I see somebody get one, man, I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
Just proud, right? It's like, yeah, they did it. They did
Yeah.
it, right? And so there's a few things still on my checklist that I'm working towards, but yeah, that to me, I just again, right? Why be negative? You can support somebody and make them feel empowered by what they did, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell 5 more people that they bought that today, and they're going to show it and share it and explain why that's a value, right? That's organic growth,
Right.
and that is you can't put a dollar on that from a marketing perspective, right? So that's enormous. That's enormous.
Wow.
And so, like I say, yeah, we're all in here supporting each other, and that permeates. Other people see that, and they want to be a part of it, right? So that's how
Man,
you grow.
Chris. Wow. Well, listen, buddy, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today and, you know, sharing your positivity and your expertise and,
Awesome.
you know, all the writing that you do. And folks, if you don't follow, you know, Chris yet, make sure to do so now. His Twitter link is in the description below, and I've also linked a few of his most recent blogs, including the one that you just did about, like, you know, Hot Wheels and everything, which was awesome. But man, I just love talking to somebody like you because I see it, you know, obviously there's like an investment piece to this, but I see it beyond that. I really think that, like, you see that, you know, you can see the potential, you see the future. And you know, there's more than just, you know, selling these things at a better price. It's like you really have that nostalgia for it, the joy of collecting, and the use case in your real life with your kids and all that stuff too. So, Chris, very, very cool
Awesome.
today, man.
Thank you very much. This was fun. I love doing this. It was great to meet you too on YouTube. And I don't know if you're in Vancouver, come on out. Right next time I'm in Toronto, I'm looking you up. So
Buddy, please, if you're coming to Toronto, like 100% I'm down, you know. And I'd love to, man, I'd love to meet up with some people. Like, I feel like it's been too long, you know, like, and people tell me it's like crazy once you actually meet people you've been watching or talking to.
yeah,
So I'd love to do it.
yeah, this is crazy. It's fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Have
All
fun.
right. Take it
All
easy.
right. Take
Bye.
care.